Some people do not hurt you directly. They do not insult you. They do not openly reject you. And they may never do anything dramatic enough to make you question the relationship itself. Yet, every time you leave, you feel slightly different, a little heavier, a little less clear, a little less like yourself. That is what makes certain relationships so difficult to recognize. The cost is rarely obvious. It does not arrive through one major event. It arrives through subtle changes repeated over time. And before you realize it, the relationship is no longer affecting only your mood. It is affecting who you become around it. Sometimes the problem is not what someone is doing to you. Sometimes the problem is who you are slowly becoming in order to stay connected to them. One of the biggest misconceptions about unhealthy relationships is the belief that they are always easy to identify. People imagine constant conflict, arguments, control, manipulation, but many of the relationships that affect us most operate quietly. There is no major confrontation, no obvious breaking point, only small experiences repeated over time. A comment that makes you second-guess yourself. A conversation that leaves you feeling smaller. A dynamic where you never feel completely relaxed. Nothing seems serious enough to justify concern. Yet something inside you slowly begins to shift. And because the shift happens gradually, it becomes difficult to notice while it is happening. The first thing many people lose is spontaneity. Around certain people, you begin thinking more carefully before speaking. You explain yourself more than usual. You edit your reactions. You become cautious about what you share, not because anyone explicitly asked you to, but because experience taught you that being fully yourself often comes with a cost. So without realizing it, you begin making adjustments. Small adjustments. Invisible adjustments. Until eventually, you're no longer showing up naturally. You're showing up strategically. You stop making certain jokes. You hold back opinions that once came easily. You avoid saying what you really think. You choose safer responses, safer topics, safer versions of yourself. And over time, these adjustments become automatic. You no longer notice yourself doing it. You simply assume this is who you are now. But often, what disappeared was not your personality. It was your sense of freedom around that person. Over time, those adjustments begin spreading into other areas of life. You become quieter, more hesitant, more self-conscious. You begin doubting decisions that never required so much thought before. Not because your confidence vanished, but because part of you learned to constantly evaluate how you might be received. And eventually, what began as adaptation starts feeling like identity. That is one of the hidden costs. You forget where the adjustment ends and where your real personality begins. The coping mechanism becomes familiar, and familiarity can easily be mistaken for who you are. Another cost is emotional energy. Some relationships do not drain you through conflict. They drain you through constant tension. The tension of being careful. The tension of monitoring yourself. The tension of never feeling completely accepted as you are. This kind of exhaustion is difficult to explain because it rarely feels dramatic. You simply notice that you have less energy afterward, less patience, less enthusiasm, less emotional space available for the parts of life that truly matter. Sometimes you feel relieved when the interaction ends. Sometimes you need time alone afterward without fully understanding why. Sometimes one conversation takes more from you than you expected, and because nothing visibly happened, you convince yourself that you are overreacting. But your emotional system often notices things long before your conscious mind does. Eventually, you stop asking why. You simply accept the exhaustion as normal. What makes these dynamics so powerful is that the human mind is built to adapt. When a relationship repeatedly creates discomfort, the emotional system begins searching for ways to reduce friction. You become more agreeable, more accommodating, more guarded. Not because these changes reflect who you truly are, but because they make the relationship easier to maintain. The problem is that every adaptation carries a cost. And sometimes the cost is authenticity. You become easier to be around, but harder to recognize, even to yourself. And maybe this is the part most people miss. The wrong people do not always change your life through dramatic events. Sometimes they change it through repetition, a repeated feeling, a repeated tension, a repeated emotional atmosphere, day after day, month after month, year after year. Eventually, you stop noticing the tension because it becomes familiar. You begin measuring yourself through their reactions. You become more focused on maintaining the relationship than understanding what it is doing to you. And slowly, the emotional environment around you begins shaping the emotional environment within you, until eventually the version of yourself that exists around them starts feeling more familiar than the version that exists everywhere else. By that point, the adaptation no longer feels temporary. It feels permanent. And perhaps the most dangerous part is that you forget how different you feel around people who allow you to relax, people who allow you to speak freely, people who do not require constant adjustment just to feel accepted. That is why the effects of certain relationships can be so difficult to identify. The damage rarely arrives all at once. It accumulates quietly in your energy, in your confidence, in your emotional freedom, in your ability to express yourself naturally. And maybe the most important question is not whether someone is toxic. Maybe the real question is much simpler. Who do you become when you are around them? Because sometimes the hidden cost of staying around the wrong people is not what they take from you. It is the version of yourself you slowly stop being. Not every difficult relationship is harmful, and not every uncomfortable interaction means someone is wrong for you. But some environments quietly require too much adaptation, too much caution, too much self-editing, too much emotional effort just to maintain a sense of stability. And over time, that cost becomes impossible to ignore. Maybe you did not become smaller. Maybe you simply learned to shrink around people who could not make space for who you really are. If this reflection felt familiar, subscribe to Quiet Clarity for more contemplative psychological insights into the hidden patterns that shape who we become, how we relate, and why certain experiences change us more than we realize.